They told us the Americans were monsters. I learned the truth in a Kansas blizzard in December 1944 when a staff sergeant draped his own thick wool blanket over my shivering shoulders. I was 16, wearing a single useless coat, expecting to freeze. But to understand why that blanket felt like a miracle, you need to know what happened 2 weeks earlier. The cold wasn't a feeling anymore. It was a fact, a solid, silent thing that lived in my bones. I was 16 years old, sitting on the splintered wooden bench in the back of an open GMC truck, rattling down some nameless Kansas road. The wind was a razor, slicing through the canvas flaps and finding every gap in my clothing. And my clothing was a single woolen coat. The coarse field grey wool of the Wehrmacht issued to me 2 weeks before. It was too big, the sleeves swallowing my hands, the hem brushing my knees. It was threadbare in places, useless against this. I was shivering so violently, my teeth chattered like dice in a cup. My breath plumed in short, frantic clouds. I could smell the damp wool, the sharp scent of my own fierce sweat freezing on my skin, and the faint, clean smell of snow on the endless, flat fields we passed. Beside me, Ernst Hoffmann huddled, a grey lump. His lips were blue. I watched the American guard. He stood braced against the cab, a silhouette in his olive drab, a rifle slung over his shoulder. He was maybe 30. He had a kind, tired face under his helmet. He'd been watching us, not with hatred, with assessment. Like a man checking livestock in a storm. I looked away, expecting a curse, a command to stop shaking. I focused on the Kansas winter. It was a different cold than the Ardennes. That was a wet, clinging cold. This was dry, absolute. A vacuum that sucked the life right out of you. The sky was the color of old iron. The ground was white, broken only by the skeletal lines of fence posts and the dark ribbon of the road ahead. I thought, this is where I die, not from a bullet, from the sky. The American guard, his name tape read Callahan, unhooked a thick grey wool blanket from his own pack. It was army issue, the wool dense and heavy. Without a word, without even making eye contact, he stepped across the truck bed, the vehicles swaying beneath him. The wind snatched at the blanket. He leaned over me. For a second, I thought he was going to hit me. I squeezed my eyes shut. The weight that settled over my shoulders was immense. It was warmth, it was the smell of damp wool, yes, but also of American tobacco and coffee and canvas. It was a weight that stopped my shivering, not all at once, but like a dam being built, tremor by tremor. He tucked the rough edges around my shoulders, his hands quick and impersonal, then did the same for Ernst with a second blanket from his pack.
You'll live.
His voice was a low rasp, barely audible over the engine and the wind. Then he returned to his post, his back to us once more, as if he'd done nothing more remarkable than adjust a cargo strap. I sat there, buried under the foreign wool. The heat of my own body, trapped now, began to seep back into my limbs, a painful, prickling foe. I looked at the back of Callahan's helmet. I looked down at my own coat, the pathetic grey wool peeking out from under the blanket. The coat my country gave me, the blanket my enemy gave me. One was meant for me to die in. The other, I didn't understand.
Mein Gott.
But to understand why that blanket felt like a miracle, a betrayal of every lesson I'd ever learned, you need to know what happened 2 weeks earlier. You need to know about the coat. The coat. A field grey woolen greatcoat, issued in the autumn of 44. It smelled of mothballs and the sour sweat of the man who'd worn it before he died. The sleeves swallowed my hands, the hem brushed my boots. It was my entire world for 2 weeks. From the boxcars onward, the journey was a blur of frozen darkness and the stench of unwashed bodies. We were packed so tight you slept standing. The only warmth was the collective heat of 50 other boys. I remember the taste of rust, the sound of a man weeping softly. We heard the rumors passed in whispers. America had camps in deserts. In swamps they worked you to death.
They say in Kansas the wind cuts through stone.
I believed him. I pulled the coat tighter. It was threadbare, the wool worn slick. It did nothing against the marrow-chilling cold of the Nebraska plains as our train crawled west, then the trucks. Open-topped cattle trucks. They loaded us in as the sky turned the color of lead. That was the Kansas winter. It didn't snow gently. The wind stole your breath, a dry scraping thief. Then it hurled needles of ice that found every gap in the coat. My lips split. My fingers curled into useless claws inside the sleeves, went numb. I stared at the back of the driver's cab, watching the exhaust plume turn to instant mist. I was 16. I was going to freeze to death in the middle of America, wearing the uniform my country gave me.
Sit straight. You represent the fatherland. Do not let them see you weak.
Krause was an old front pig, a veteran of Russia. He still believed. He sat rigid, his coat buttoned to the neck, his face a blue-white mask of defiance. I tried to imitate him, but my body was a traitor. My teeth chattered so violently I thought they would shatter. The trucks lurched to a halt on a barren road. Wind howled across empty fields, whipping the snow into ghostly shapes. An American jeep was pulled over ahead, its motor running. A soldier climbed out, a staff sergeant. He walked toward our truck, his parka hood furred with frost. This was it, a beating for slowing them down. Or worse.
Engine trouble. Gonna be a minute. You boys all right back there?
Krause remained silent, glaring. The sergeant's eyes scanned us. They didn't look hateful, they looked assessing, professional. They lingered on me, on my violent shivering. On the way, the wind lifted the useless fabric of my coat. He frowned, he turned and walked back to the jeep. My heart sank, he was getting his officer. But he didn't. He opened the back of the jeep, rummaged in a canvas bag and walked back. In his hands were 2 woolen blankets, olive drab and thick. He stopped at our tailgate, looking right at me and the boy next to me, a kid from Hamburg who was crying silently, his tears freezing on his cheeks.
Here, it's a long ride yet.
He tossed the blankets up. They landed in a heap between us. For a long second, no one moved. It was a trick. It had to be. Krause stared, his jaw clenched. The American just nodded once, turned and walked back to his jeep. I looked at the blanket. Then, slowly, my fingers screaming in protest, I reached out. The wool was coarse, heavy, real. I pulled it around my shoulders. The weight was an immediate, profound relief. It was a weight that held heat in. A simple, impossible weight of mercy.
Why?
I had no answer. I buried my face in the rough wool. It smelled of diesel and dust and something clean like soap. Under that blanket, in the heart of that Kansas winter, wearing the coat meant to see me through a war I never chose, I began to thaw. And something else, something hard and cold inside me that had nothing to do with the weather, began to crack. The thaw was not of my flesh. That still ached. A deep, marrow-deep cold that had settled in during the 3 days in the open rail cars. The crack was in the belief, the one they drilled into us since we were 10, that the Amy was a beast, a subhuman who would show no quarter. The blanket was a fact, a green, woolen, scratchy fact that lay across my shoulders as the truck jolted forward. The convoy was a line of olive-drab beasts growling across a flat, white world. Kansas. The name meant nothing. It was just a frozen expanse, the wind scouring the plains and knifing through the canvas flaps of our truck. My coat, that oversized Feldgrau wool, was a sieve. It held the shape of cold. Ernst huddled against me, his breath a white plume.
I can't feel my feet.
His whisper was raw. I just nodded, my jaw locked. Across from us, Unteroffizier Kraus sat rigid, his eyes fixed on the American guard at the tailgate. The guard, a man with a weathered face, stamped his boots and blew into his gloved hands. He wore a thick-lined parka. The difference was a physical weight. The truck hit a rut. We were thrown against a wooden bench. A low moan came from the man next to Kraus. He'd been coughing since dawn.
Silence. Maintain discipline.
Krause didn't look at the sick man. He looked at the American, his expression pure contempt. The American met his gaze, then looked past him. At the coughing soldier his eyes narrowed. Not in anger, in assessment. He shifted his weight, reached into a pouch on his belt, and pulled out a small waxed paper packet. He held it out, not to Krause, but to the sick man.
Here, for the cough.
It was a hard, honey-colored lozenge. The sick man stared, uncomprehending. Krause's voice was a blade.
Do not take it. It is poison or a trick.
The American, Callahan, his name tape said, sighed. A cloud of steam. He peeled the paper back himself, popped the lozenge into his own mouth and chewed. He showed his empty mouth. Then he produced another, holding it out again.
Just honey and lemon, son, for the cough.
The son did it. The sick man, a boy really, maybe 18, reached a trembling hand. He put the lozenge in his mouth. His eyes widened at the sweetness. A simple human kindness. Krause looked away, his face a mask of fury. But the truth was in the taste, in the honey, in the blanket on my back. The doctrine was brittle, and in that Kansas cold, it was shattering. The coat was my country's promise. Fight and die for the Reich. The blanket was my enemy's answer, leave. The contradiction sat with me, colder and more profound than the wind. The trucks rolled on, the light fading to a grey dusk. The cold deepened, becoming a tangible presence. I pulled the American blanket tighter. It smelled of diesel and wool and a faint, foreign scent of pine. My own coat beneath it felt like a corpse's shroud. I watched the snow streak past the open back of the truck, and I knew nothing would be the same. What happened next, in the heart of that camp, is something I have never told anyone. Not until now. The truck's engine cut, and the silence that followed was absolute, broken only by the wind's low moan across the Kansas plain. We were a line of grey ghosts, shivering on the frozen ground before the wire. My teeth chattered so violently I thought they might shatter. The wool of my coat, that single oversized garment my unit had issued me before the Ardennes, was stiff with ice where my breath had condensed and frozen. It was a shell, it held no warmth, only the memory of cold. I focused on the gravel beneath my boots, on the need to stay upright. A shape moved into my blurred vision. American boots, scuffed brown leather stopped before me. I forced my eyes up past the olive-drab wool trousers, the thick winter parka, to the face of the soldier. It was the same one from the train, the one with the car mice. Staff Sergeant Callahan. His breath plumed in the air between us. He wasn't smiling, his gaze was clinical, assessing, moving from my blue-tinged lips to the pathetic, threadbare drape of my coat. God Almighty. He said it under his breath, almost to himself. I saw the debate play out on his weathered face. A tightening around his eyes, a glance over his shoulder at the other guards, a slight hardening of his jaw. This was a breach. This was fraternization. I knew the rules as well as he did. My own officers would have shot him for the fort. I braced for a shove. a barked order to move. He didn't speak. Instead, he shrugged one shoulder out of his parka, wrestling with the bulk of it. For a wild second, I thought he was stripping to fight. Then, with a fluid motion, he pulled a thick, grey wool blanket from where it had been folded inside his coat. It was army issue, coarse but dense. He shook it out once, a sharp crack in the cold air. The world slowed, the wind faded, all I could see was the blanket held in his gloved hands. He stepped closer, I flinched, a conditioned reflex. He paused, then simply leaned forward and draped the heavy wool over my shoulders. The weight of it was a shock, solid, substantial. Then the warmth hit me. It was the residual heat from his own body, trapped in the fibers, a wave of it cascading down my frozen back. I stopped breathing. The sensation was so alien, so utterly disconnected from the past months of relentless cold, that my mind couldn't process it. It was a physical truth that dismantled every lie I'd been fed. My enemy's mercy was warmer than the coat my own country gave me to die in. Don't make a scene, son. Just stand there. His voice was low, gruff. He didn't look at me again. He just rebuttoned his parka over his now thinner frame, turned on his heel and walked back to his post, his breath puffing out in quick, white jets. The blanket's weight settled, a profound anchor. I felt the violent shudders begin to subside, replaced by a deep, trembling ache. Next to me, Ernst Hoffmann stared, his own face pale with cold and disbelief.
He will be shot for that.
I couldn't answer. I just clutched the rough wool at my collar, pulling it tighter. The scent of it was clean, like soap and damp wool, and a faint, smoky hint of American tobacco. It was the smell of life. I looked at Callahan's back, at the set of his shoulders against the biting wind. He had given me more than a blanket. He had given me a silent, devastating lesson. In that moment, on that frozen ground, the war inside me ended. The convoy's engine rumbled to life. The blanket was a rough, woolen shield against the wind that now sliced through the open truck bed. I clutched it around my shoulders, my fingers finding the coarse weave. The smell of American tobacco was gone, replaced by diesel fumes and the cold, clean scent of Kansas snow. I looked at Callahan one last time. He was already walking away, his breath pluming in the air, not looking back. The lesson was complete. The trucks moved. The frozen landscape began to slide past. Ernst Hoffmann huddled next to me, his teeth chattering.
A blanket, a single blanket, from an enemy.
I could only nod. The weight of the woolen coat beneath the blanket felt different now. It was no longer my sole protector. It was a relic of a failed promise. The coat my country gave me was meant for a soldier on parade, not for survival. It was meant to be a uniform, not a shroud. The American blanket was meant for warmth, full stop. That was the truth, laid bare in the stitching. The journey was a blur of white fields and grey sky. The cold was a constant, gnawing presence, but the blanket held it at bay. My mind was not on the destination, but on the departure, on the set of those American shoulders, walking away from an act he would likely never think of again. For him, a moment of mercy. For me, the pivot upon which a life turned. I am 94 years old now. The scar on my leg has faded to a pale whisper. The chill of that Kansas winter, however, never truly left my bones. This is the coat. The very same. Felt grey wool, threadbare at the cuffs, the buttons still stamped with the eagle. I have kept it for 80 years. Not to remember the war, but to remember how close I came, to remember the precise, brittle cold of hopelessness, and to remember the warmth that followed from a most unexpected quarter. I came to America after the war. I became a teacher. I taught history. I tried to teach that lesson, that mercy is not a sign of weakness, but a formidable strength. That in the frozen silence between two enemies, a single act of common decency can echo for a lifetime. These stories, my story, Ernst's story, the stories of boys in oversized coats, they are disappearing every day. When we are gone, the silence will be absolute. That is why I must tell it. That is why you must listen. The blanket was returned when we reached Camp Concordia. A GI collected it with a nod. But the warmth it gave me, the idea it planted in my frozen soul, that I kept. In the middle of a Kansas winter, my enemy's mercy was warmer than the coat my own country gave me to die in. Remember that. Share that. Subscribe and share this with someone who needs to hear it. A new forgotten story every single day. The blanket was olive drab wool, coarse and smelling of American tobacco and diesel. It landed on my shoulders with a weight that was more than fabric. It was a sensation. The shivering that had been my constant companion for 3 days in that open truck, it didn't stop, but it changed. It became a tremor of shock, not just cold.
Don't make a thing of it, kid. Just sit still.
His voice was a low Kansas rumble. He didn't look at me. He stared ahead at the white Kansas road, his own breath pluming in the air. He'd just given me a share of the wind, which had been a knife peeling back the layers of my threadbare coat, now hit the blanket first. I could feel the difference. A barrier, a wall.
What is he doing?
Ernst huddled next to me, his lips blue. I couldn't answer. My own mind was frozen, thawing in erratic, painful sparks. This was the enemy. The man whose job was to deliver me to a cage. The coat I wore, the single woolen coat issued to me at 16, was a feldgraue shroud. It had absorbed the sleet of the Ardennes, the damp of the hold of the Liberty ship, and now the dry, scouring cold of the plains. It had never warmed me. It was a shell. This blanket, this was warmth, active, given.
You're going to see your breath for the next 5 months. Get used to it.
He said it to the air, a statement of fact. Not cruelty, not kindness, just fact. And in that fact was a strange mercy. He wasn't pretending this wasn't happening, he was just dealing with it, with me in it. The truck jolted over a rut. I clutched the rough wool edges, pulling them tighter. The gesture was instinctive, animal. A claim. I looked at the back of his head. His helmet strap was loose. I could see the frayed edge of his own collar. He had given me a piece of his army, a piece of his warmth, for no reason, no demand, no propaganda. It made the ideology they drilled into us, the fanatical last stand, the subhuman enemy, crumble like rotten timber. It was quieter than an explosion, more final. The convoy slowed. Through the falling flakes I saw the first fences. Concordia. The blanket was now damp with my melting frost. It was heavier, it was proof.
End of the line.
He turned. His eyes, a tired blue, met mine for the first time. He gave a short, almost imperceptible nod. Not to me. To the blanket. A transaction completed. Then he looked away, his face closing up into the neutral mask of duty. We shuffled off the truck. The cold attacked anew, but I was ready. I had the blanket around my shoulders. A smuggled secret. An enemy standard. As we were marched toward the processing hut, an SS officer, captured weeks before us, his uniform still arrogantly neat, glared at me.
Discard that trash. Have you no pride?
I looked at him. I looked at the blanket. I thought of the coat on my back, issued by a regime that sent children to die in the snow for a lost cause. I pulled the American wool tighter. The truth, revealed in the weight of a simple object, was this. In the middle of a Kansas winter, my enemy's mercy was warmer than the coat my own country gave me to die in. Remember that, share that, subscribe and share this with someone who needs to hear it. A new forgotten story every single day. I am 97 years old now. My hands, which once shook from the cold, now tremble with age. Staff Sergeant Callahan, the man with the blanket, passed in 78. I never got to thank him. My grandchildren ask me about being a prisoner. They want to hear about the barbed wire, the guards, but I tell them about the silence in that truck and the sudden heavy warmth of a wool blanket placed over a useless coat. We share these stories so the humanity of that generation is never forgotten. If you believe these memories should be preserved, subscribe and share this with someone who needs to hear it. A new forgotten story every single day, before the last of us who remember are gone. I can still smell the wet wool and the Kansas frost in that moment, clearer than yesterday. The characters, incidents, and dialogue in this video are dramatized for narrative and entertainment effect. While some events may be inspired by real-life themes, this story is a work of fiction.